Hey everyone. Today we're talking about CTAs, or also known as call to actions. If you're unfamiliar with the term, this is the part of your email where you're asking the reader to do something, to take action. That might be go read a blog or book a call or purchase your product. And there's a lot of chatter about how many CTAs you should have in one email, which is exactly what we're going to talk about today. So let's get into those details and clear a few things up.
Yeah, so to get started, I'm going to give you guys a little scenario to just imagine for a second. Say you're going into a restaurant and you sit down, and the waitress hands you a menu that is like 13 pages long. And then she comes back a minute later and says, "Do you know what you want yet?" And you're probably so overwhelmed and feeling like, how could I possibly have made a decision yet, right? I haven't even finished reading it yet. And compare that to the experience of going to a specialty restaurant. Like, let's say you go to, a nice ramen restaurant and you go in and the waiter hands you a menu and there's, maybe 5 to 8 choices on there. And she says, if this is your first time here, try the spicy miso ramen. That is everyone's favorite. It becomes such an easy decision to make, right? You have the recommendation, you're probably going to be happy with that choice, and you know that there's not too many other choices that you're missing out on, right?
Yeah.
So, in an email, obviously that's going to be a little bit different than sitting down at a restaurant. But when you overwhelm your reader with multiple choices, you're actually just losing them to indecision and overwhelm. So, when we're talking about an email, we want to really guide the reader through making one single decision. And they're more likely then to take that action rather than if they're feeling overwhelmed, they're just going to click away, right? When you're not going to get up and leave a restaurant, maybe, but in an email, you're absolutely just going to hit delete, move on.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when you add multiple CTAs, you're splitting their decision. So the way to get the most action out of your CTA, right, is to have one single obvious call to action because decision fatigue is such a real thing. And if your goal is to say, book a call, you don't want to dilute that message with a competing link and then send them somewhere else. Then what's the point, right?
Yes. Now, there are some occasions where a secondary CTA might work. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. For example, a really long launch sequence or a sales sequence where you're repeating the same CTA over and over and over again. Maybe it's book a call, maybe it's just to make that sale, but basically you're really hitting that same CTA. That's where sometimes a secondary CTA can work really well if it's like working in conjunction with that primary goal. So let's say you maybe have a case study that would help support them making that decision, or you have a testimonial video. So asking them to, click away to check out that resource that helps them make that decision can be a really useful way to scatter in some secondary CTAs in a really long sequence where you're repeating that CTA. But even in this case, it should still support the main action you want them to take.
Right. For another example, let's say you're running a webinar and the main CTA is to sign up now. But the secondary CTA could be something like watch a sneak peek for those who need a little bit more information before committing to sign up, right?
Yeah, if you're itching to add a secondary CTA, this can be helpful to do like in the PS section. That way, it's kind of like an overflow bucket. So the main part of your email is still really, focused on that primary CTA. But if they make it to the end and they're still a little unsure, they want to go a little deeper, they get scooped up by that secondary CTA in the PS section.
But you want to keep in mind that the way to get the most action on your CTA is to stick to your primary CTA. So like you said, the PS is a great place to like recap your main points and even tackle an objection or a hesitation, right? But like for instance, you can remind them that your calls are free and that there's no pressure behind those calls.
Yeah, so that's a big distinction that we want to make is all of this does depend a lot on what your goals are. So there's a difference between nurture emails and conversion emails,
Mhm.
right? So what is your primary goal for this specific email? So if if your CTA, your conversions, getting the click for that specific action is the most important goal for the email, then you really do want to stick to the primary CTA and not have any secondary confusion that might prevent your prospect from taking that action.
Yeah.
But what if your primary goal is to nurture your audience or to engage your subscribers, to increase your click rates? All of those are going to be a little bit different in terms of what your goal is in that email.
Yeah, and you don't want to confuse the engagement metrics like clicks with conversion metrics, right? Those are two different things. Like if your goal is to provide value, hyperlinking like additional content or including multiple CTAs, then it makes sense. But if the email is like your big push to say like book a call or to purchase something, you want to stay focused again on that one CTA.
Yeah. So to sum it up, if you want the most action on your primary CTA, keep it singular and keep it focused.
And if you do add a second CTA, make sure it supports, not competes with the main action that you want people to take.
Yeah. And if you found this video helpful, go ahead and hit that button to like and subscribe and drop a comment below if you have any questions.